So Laura and I have probably had more fun. Is that too loud?
No, it's great.
Laura and I have probably had more fun doing the research for this than you're going to have listening to our program, because we really, we can't stop ourselves. We just get searching, doing more and more and more. Now, and I should tell you, it's up to 50 slides. Where's Joanne? Joanne was worried about it might being boring when we were doing it. I heard you say that. So Joanne, I'm putting you in charge of rolling your eyes if I speak, so we will speed it up a little bit. It's in 5 parts. Laura's going to do the first part, and then I'm going to do a couple, and then she's going to finish up. And I think it'll work out that way. And then we have our special guest, who you see on the says on her name's there, Nikki Sokowski is here because she's a descendant of the Pratt family, and
only by marriage.
I mean by marriage. She's Molly Sokowski's daughter-in-law, married to Steve, and she brought some of the artifacts that are on the display table, the family Bible, and some others, some love letters between Araminta and Jerome. So we welcome you to come up and look through this stuff afterwards. And I think, oh yeah, so let me sit down and start working the slides, and Laura's up next.
Thank you, Edith.
You're welcome.
First Mission Point Lighthouse keeper. We're going to start out with the genealogy. And we don't have a photo of him. Of all the times he's been mentioned in Aaron and Roxanna Pratt in Licking County, Ohio. He was a self-taught student in the summer, and in the winter he did attend school. He worked on farms down in Ohio and on his father's and neighboring farms. He married Araminta Rosecrans in 1845, and they moved to Old Mission area in 1849. He purchased land on the Old Mission Peninsula, which is the current Pratt farm, in 1860. It's possible he was living on the property before he bought it. It was not probably available for sale at the time. So I'll show you a map later and you'll see where that would be. He ended up lighthouse keeper at Skilligalee in Lake Michigan, 1861 to 1868. His son was Jerome Mortimer Pratt Jr. Was the assistant keeper at that point. So he ended up being a lighthouse keeper at Old Mission Point, 1870 to 1878, where he was removed from office mysteriously. We don't know exactly why. We'll mention that a little bit later also. He retired to the farm on the old homestead on the shores of a beautiful bay. We do have a photo, and this is quite a good deal. This came from the great-grandson's estate, and the person that purchased it gave us a call and said, I have a photo for you. Wow. And we are so fortunate. All right, and now we're going to move on to the family tree. You see on the left, Jerome Pratt, Araminta Rosecrans Pratt. Their son, Jerome, and this is in the order of their birth. So Jerome Mortimer Pratt Jr., he was called Mortimer. Don't know too much about him except he looks like he was assistant keeper at Skilligalee, even though he was quite young. He became a sailor. And Emma Araminta Bagley, she married William Bagley. And William D. Bagley and Edward. This is the Pratt House family residence. It was located across from where the replica log church is now. So right now it's just a big field. And then the William Pratt's house, and now the Sokowski house is behind that.
Behind it.
So that, you could see that one, and still, that was there being lived in.
You can see it
Enjoy.
behind that massive lilac bushes that I can't get rid of. So if anyone would like to dig some up, more than welcome.
Okay.
And you see the little house to the right. That little house, just north of that, is the Doherty Mission House. So this was part of the Doherty property. So they were neighbors. Jerome Pratt was an Indian farmer at one time. I'm sure that he and Peter Doherty were well acquainted with each other. This is Skilligally Lighthouse. It's actually like a French name, Isle of Pebbles, and I'm not even going to try to say the French pronunciation. Apparently, nobody else could do very well either because it was Americanized as Skilligally. This was, like, interestingly, during the Civil War, that he was at the lighthouse. This lighthouse is just a small patch of land, and it's rocky, it's flat, it's it's pretty amazing. It's near Cross Village. So that's where, when he was there, it was his wife, Araminta, she taught at the U.S. Indian School there.
Obviously, we just skirted the whole Pratt family genealogy situation. I mean, when you have 7 children, forms of transportation going on in the late 1800s. This is just an example that didn't really happen too much. I mean, hardly any dogs drove their own buggies. So. Anyway, let's do the next one. But there were some legitimate forms, and for instance, these ads I got out of the Grand Traverse Herald, and the one on the left, the General H.E. Payne, it's a steamboat schedule from 1870. I know it's hard to read it, but they left. It reminds me of what the Beta bus is taking up, only it was on the water. It's exactly that same kind of situation. They left Northport at 6 a.m. They stopped in Traverse City, Old Mission, on to Elk Rapids, Torch Lake, Antrim City. I'm not sure where that is. Brownstown. I wonder if that's where Brownwood Acres or something might be, but I'm not sure. And then Pine River, which is Charlevoix area, and then back to Northport, all in one day. And so you could stay at any of those places, and you didn't even have to get back on. You could stay a week or so if you wanted, and if you had relatives that far away. So it was really a good situation. I think Saturday it's a little bit different schedule. They went to Norwood, Torch Lake, Elk Rapids, and Old Mission, and then back to Traverse City, and then they again returned to Northport. Then the steam yacht was based in Elk Rapids, the Jenny Sutton, and they went on Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, and they would. It's interesting how they advertised to the pickup for Old Mission. When you had said that if you were in Old Mission, you'd return in the opposite direction, and gave passengers an opportunity to remain for 4 hours and then return back home the same day, so you could do shopping or again visit your relatives, whatever you wanted to do. My husband was telling us this, Laura and I actually, I know it's hard to believe, but we actually did a run through of this yesterday in practice. And he was telling us that what his dad told him is because to go to town, his dad was born in 1902, so you get the idea. When he was a young man living out here at Old Mission, north of here, he would, to go to town and come back in the buggy took a whole day, an entire day. But then in the winter, they could like take a cutter, or no. In the winter, they could take a cutter to Traverse City, and would you say how long that would take? Stagecoach, did you ever have any idea there were stagecoaches out here? Didn't you think they were just the Wild West? But I found this, and it's Campbell's, and they were the same people that owned the Park Place, the old Campbell House. And they had a passenger mail and express stages. They went to Clam Lake, which is, I think, up near, we passed through it on the way up north last weekend. Up near Petoskey. It's near Petoskey. And so they connected up there, you know, there was a train that went up too, and so they connected with the train, and you could actually, from there, go to Chicago or to Detroit. They also carried the U.S. mail and dropped it off at the post offices as they went, the stages did that. And this was in February, this ad was placed February 22nd, 1872, so that's about the same time that we're talking about when Jerome Pratt was the lighthouse keeper. How many knew we had stagecoaches? Anybody? No. Oh, yeah. So one more form would, this was in Traverse City, and this is obviously a steamship. It's a Northern Michigan Transportation Company. It was a local, and again, it's kind of like the Beta Bus. Okay, see, this was pretty easy. We're already on to part 3. Efforts to establish a light station on Mission Point, and it was a lot harder than one would think. I'll start with one of the reasons why they needed one out here, and fortuitously we were at Whitefish Point over the weekend, and there was a plaque, and I just had to get this quote from it because I think it's kind of amazing. Collisions were more common in earlier times because there were more vessels. In the 1880s, which is exactly our time period here, over 3,100 commercial vessels were on the lakes compared to fewer than 200 today. So, and she was talking about up at Whitefish Point, the docent was, that they were like thick, and it wasn't unusual. They were running into each other all the time. So they needed lighthouses for nighttime travel. The other thing, I just wanted to mention it again. One of the things when you're talking about something and like you've never even heard of it before, and then like in the next 5 days, other people mention it. I know, it's just coincidentally. So did any of you read the Record Eagle? I think it was on Sundays at 110 years ago. So this little item was in there, and this is in 1909, but I think it's close enough that I needed to bring it in. Traverse City will have a steamboat line between here and Old Mission for the coming season. The new line will also be extended to Elk Rapids for at least one round trip, but the schedule has not been firmed up yet. The new steamer will be named Lena and Knobloch and was purchased by Peter Lardy and Klaus Olson of Old Mission. So we were right in the thick of things. This would have been a beautiful slide if I could have gotten the background for you, but it's a, do you remember when Nancy Giroux did any of you were here when she did that, the nautical archaeological one? And this is a slide that that was on the presentation that she gave, and this is a Google Earth map. But it shows where the lighthouses are around our area in Grand Traverse Bay from 1832 to 1910. So Wagashon Shoal established 1832, Grand Traverse Lighthouse 1852, and then White Shoal Lighthouse established in 1910. We're right in the middle. They needed something for us. And then there's one up the Straits also, and one at the Manitou Passage. All right, so this is how it all started. In 1859, unfortunately, it was just before the Civil War, but they did, the Congress made an appropriation of $5,000 for building a lighthouse on the peninsula in Grand Traverse Bay. They thanked this Honorable D.C. Leach, who was our rep, for helping push that through. Of course, the Civil War came in 1860. No funds to build a lighthouse out here. It didn't seem to be an important target for the Confederates to worry about. There were no little subs or anything around. So then nothing happened. That's probably one reason why James Pratt went up to Skill of Belief, is he could get a good good government job up there. Whoops, you can go back. Anyway, they rescinded, now that it said 6,000, we said 5,000 before, they rescinded it. And in 1859, they said, there was an appropriation of $6,000 in March 1859 available for building a lighthouse upon this point. Then, the necessity for the construction of the lighthouse never having been at all urgent, the money has not been expended. Further examination into the matter will be made, and if it does not appear the station is required, the appropriation will be transferred to the surplus fund. So again, that's government transferring funds. Nothing has changed really, has it? So the big wigs, the important people in the area, went ahead and came up with a petition. To convince the Congress, and I know you can't read that, Laura found this petition, and it's really cool. A lot of names that you would have recognized on this. They sent it to Congress, but Perry Hanna's there. He's way up the very top left, and then across from him is Morgan Bates, who was the editor of the Grand Traverse Herald. S.E. Waite was on it, and Jerome Pratt is third from the bottom on the right. You can see his signature. And there's probably 5 or 6 other names that I recognize. And so the petition was successful. Hallelujah. They executed a warranty deed. The people that owned that property, Jared and Mary Tyler, in favor of the United States in consideration of the sum of $83.80 for the parcel of land called Mission Point. And we know that's a big parcel. I'd never read that fact before. So now they're starting to build a lighthouse. They actually can do it. And so this is the Henry Warrington delivered the Fresnel lens. I don't know where it came from or anything about it, but Laura found that slide too.
That's cool.
So they have the lens, which is important. They started building it. On September 1st, 1870, remember it was 1869 that they went ahead and started construction. Completed September 1st, 1870. This is another article in the Herald that says, we learned the lighthouse is completed. It will be lighted tonight, September 1st. Will hereafter point out to mariners in the darkest nights the way up both East and West Bay and warn them of the dangerous shoal in its immediate vicinity. The underlined part, we understand that Mr. J.M. Pratt is at present in charge of the lighthouse, but whether temporarily or permanently, we do not know.
The story there.
It's gotta be. So that was September 1st, but then on September 8th, the next week, because the Herald came out every Thursday. September 8th, it says, correction. That's a little dim, I know. Last week we stated the light at Old Mission Point would appear on September 1st. We're informed by Mr. Pratt, who has charge of the lighthouse. So somehow in that next week he's got charge that his instructions are to light up on the evening of the 10th. So then the next article says the newly established station was lighted for the first time on the evening of September 10th, 1869. All the materials were delivered by the steamer Warrington. The lens in use here is the one removed from Grand Traverse Lighthouse because Laura knows about that. Did Grand Traverse Lighthouse get a new lens?
Yeah, they got a 4th order.
The 4th order, and this is what? 5th order. So the smaller the number, the bigger the lens? Okay.
Yeah, right here.
Okay.
Yes.
And it says the timber on a portion of the lighthouse grounds obstructs the light through a small arc and should be removed when funds are available. And we saw that picture sometime, but I don't know where it is, but you can see there's deep woods all around there, and it was obstructing the light from going out, shining out on the water. It was called the middle road of the peninsula, not the center road, it was the middle. And then this next one is about the earliest photo that we could find. And do you remember that Laura and Steph Staley wrote the book about the history of the Mission Point Lighthouse. They
Yep.
were able to contact this woman who's a lighthouse historian, and she sent them this picture of the lighthouse, which is really nice, and it's about the 1880s. So it probably didn't look quite like that when he took over, but close. And Laura pointed out, if you look on the left, there's a big pile of woods there.
Yeah.
A big what?
Of logs that they used to heat the place. And I was looking at the barn up close, and look how wide that barnwood is. It's kind of like the Hessler log cabin. All right, we're ready for part 4. So this is the story of the logbook.